Good evening. Let us have a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity of meeting. At this time, we pray for your Holy Spirit's guidance and teaching on this important topic of food combinations. Is our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. So our topic of discussion, food combinations. We've been looking at the topic, My Plate. This is the final series in the My Plate series. And here we come to the very exciting time where we would be looking at the different plates and what do you actually put on your plate in a proper combination so that you would not have any disturbance in the stomach. So here is a quotation from the book Counsels on Diets and Foods, page 112. It says, the meals should be varied. The same dishes prepared in the same way should not appear on the table meal after meal and day after day. The meals are eaten with greater relish and the system is better nourished when the food is varied. So there are individuals who may tend to cook on a Sunday, but in a large quantity of food, and then doing so, you find that you eat that food on the Sunday, the same thing on the Monday, the same thing on the Tuesday. But what if you do observe carefully, you're having the same food repeatedly, the same nutrients that exist within that food item, and you don't have a variety of nutrients coming to the body. So for example, if you're doing pumpkin and eggplants and you prepared a large amount of those, then that's all the nutrients that you're going to get, the beta carotene and the other factors. But then what about getting some green leafy where you can increase the iron intake, calcium, and so forth. So there are different nutrients to be gained in different food crops. Hence the reason we should better have a variety of food through the course of a week. And I'd like to tell folks, if you do go and buy for the week that is ahead of you, and then the following week, have a look at the items that you may have as an option that you can now take up for the second week ahead and get some variety, a different kind, in not only in the food item itself, but also in the nutrients. So, it's better for the body that you would gain a spread of nutrition. The variety of food at one meal causes unpleasantness and destroys the good which each article, if taken alone, would do the system. This practice causes constant suffering and often death. So in one meal, if you have too wide of a variety of food, it can cause unpleasantness in the stomach, and rather than it would be better if you had one article at a time in the food, then you find that it would be better. So it also says that this practice causes constant suffering and often death. So if you have the indigestion, the acid reflux, those pains in the stomach doesn't just go away like that. And for some individuals, they can have those pains in the stomach for an extended period of, and it doesn't seem to have a break, like your stomach always burns, or the throat would always burn. And so that's pretty much suffering. But then if you do have too wide of a variety, too many kinds of food on that plate at your meal times, then it can cause a lot of suffering that can even lead on to death because of the fermentation taking place, and also malnutrition that can result from that when the body doesn't get to absorb nutrients in a proper manner. It would be much better to eat only 2 or 3 different kinds of food at a meal than to load the stomach with many varieties. So here I want to draw your attention to the word kinds. It would be much better to eat only 2 or 3 different kinds of food at a meal. So when you hear the word kind, and you think about, in the Bible, I want to direct you, we tend to think, well, where did we hear that word kind? In Genesis, we can have that word kind. And so we would look at Genesis 1:21. It says, "And God created great whales and every living creature that moveth, which the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind. And God saw," sorry, let me just get rid of that. "And God saw that it was good." All right, so here in Genesis, and this is one example of the word kind being shown here in the Bible. So you have the whales after their kind, every living creature that moveth in the waters, on the earth, or even those that fly in the air that had wings, they were after their kind. So you have creatures that swim in the ocean, you have the fowl of the air, and they are of those categories. And so God looked at all of that, and he said it was good. Then if we continue on, we find Genesis 1:12, "And the earth brought forth grass and herb-yielding seed after his kind, and the tree yielding fruit, whose seed was in itself after his kind. And God saw that it was good." So the grass and the herb yielding seed after his kind, the fruit whose seed was in itself after his kind, and God said it was good. So you have again the categories that's taken place here, and the classification, and it's described as by kinds. So when you read these, we know we've been talking about Genesis 1:29, and God said, "Behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed which is upon the face of the earth, and every tree in which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed, to you it shall be for meat." So when we think about food for human consumption, the command was given to Adam. Here you have the fruit, every tree and the fruits and so forth, and this is what you ought to eat. And then you see that after sin, plants were introduced to the diet. Genesis 3:18 says, "Thorns also and thistles shall it bring forth to thee, and thou shalt eat the herb of the field. In the sweat of thy face thou shalt eat bread." And so the herbs of the field were actually introduced to man's diet after sin. So we find that in our last session, where we looked at the vegetables, and we did go into the class, what constitutes a fruit and what constitutes vegetables. And we see that altogether they were given for food. We have in our book, Ministry of Healing, It also talks about grains, fruits, nuts, and vegetables constitute the diet chosen for us by our Creator. These foods prepared in as simple and natural a manner as possible are the most helpful and nourishing. They impart a strength, a power of endurance, and a vigor of intellect that are not afforded by a more complex and stimulating diet. So these grains, fruits, nuts, and vegetables, they constitute the diet chosen for us by our Creator. And that is, when we think about what makes good food for human consumption, the Lord has given us the direction in His Word and also in the writings. It's reinforced and broken down. Hello, grains, fruits, nuts, and vegetables constitute this diet chosen for us. So, and what's quite interesting is that they impart a strength, a power of endurance, and a vigor of intellect that are not afforded by a more complex and stimulating diet. So even in the food, we look for simplicity and not to have, the complexity of the food combination. There's also another statement that tells us, let me see if I have it here. It also tells us that grains, fruits, nuts, and vegetables, that they contain all the nutritive properties that we need to make good blood. This a flesh diet cannot do. And so these, these foods are what we are to be a part of, and we see that statement in several other places in our lectures. So now we want to actually look a little deeper into the word of kind and kind categories. So we have established that in creation, God created the animals, the sea creatures, the fowl of the air, and they had kind. And even Adam, he looked around and he didn't see any like his kind, and then God made Eve for him. And so we have humankind. But when it comes to food, let us understand that there are different kinds of food. And here you go into the simplicity of the diet. And I say it's simple and it's not complex at all. And we break this down for you. So if we were to look at botanical families, in the foods, we have different categories of botanical families. So for example, let me see. If I were to say, to think about citrus for a moment, and could somebody, who is online actually share, tell us, you can just type it in, about what are some citrus fruits that you know of. So could we get some feedback? What are some citrus? So that's a category that we could think of, citrus fruits. So okay, we have orange, grapefruit, lemon, good. Yes, so what, any more? Yes, orange. Tangerine, yes, good. So we're expanding our mind here. Limes as well. Pineapple, no, it's not there. Pineapple is in another botanical family on its own. Yes, lemon. So we have those citrus. And then what about the melon family? I know we had this in our discussion some time ago in our chat box. The melon family, what are some categories? Excellent. Cantaloupe, watermelon, yes. Any other? Honeydew, great, pumpkin, yes. So there you're getting it, and they're all fruit kind because the seed is on the inside. Bitter melon, squash, excellent. Cucumber is also another one, good. Yeah, we have that there. So that's the concept when we talk about kinds and what, you know, in the food, in the botanical family, what we're going to be looking at. So let's just have a look at the grains botanical family. Okay, let me minimize that. So we start off with the grains and we go on here. So this botanical family is the most important in the world for human nutrition. These are true grains and they require long cooking for at least 3 hours, the Gramineaceae botanical family. So you have bamboo shoots is part of the Gramineaceae family, and examples will be oats. So we are quite familiar with rice, yeah, and corn. But even when it comes to rice, there are about like 200 different kinds of rice. And they can taste different as well. I've met individuals who've said, I don't like rice. I said, well, I think if you were to try different kinds of rice, that you would find it interesting and you may get one that you like. Because I would be encouraging folks, you know, to eat brown rice. And if they don't like rice, then we have a hard start right there. But you have the brown rice, wild rice, you have black rice, red rice, you have sweet brown rice, short grain, long grain, wahani, japanoka, you know, a whole variety of it. Black rice, you know, tends to, when you cook that, it has a tinge of a purple color and really adds a lot of color to the food. Antioxidants, you know, it likes to hang around with colors. Iron, and they're really loaded with great nutrients. But then you have corn, it's a grain. Oats is also a grain. You have millet, rye, sorghum, wheat, emmer, wheat, kamut, spelt, cornmeal, barley, teff, you know, a whole wide variety of grains, and even bamboo shoot is part of the grain family, and cane, this sugar cane, is part of the grain family. For those who may have the book volume set, Food Encyclopedia, so the Encyclopedia of Foods, written by George Pamplona Rogers. If you do have that and you look in the volume 1, under the grains section, you will see the list of different kinds of grains and where it may tell you, you know, where it's predominantly found within the world, and some highlight of great benefit that exists next to each one of these listed items. So that's one of the research books that you can reference when it comes to looking at these categories of the foods. Then we also have some pseudo greens, and these they're not really part of the Gramineaceae family. So you see they're more seeds, and so they do not require the long 3-hour cooking. So you cook them until they burst open nicely, which is one of the great things with cooking our rice. And if you have a rice cooker, and these grains that we're talking about, they are whole grains. So just going back a little bit to say the Gramineaceae and even the Pseudo Greens, they are whole and they are not stripped of their fiber. So with a round grain of rice, there's a shell, a more firm, harder shell that comes out, but on the inside it's whole and it's not stripped of that fiber, nor is it stripped of the bran. So you eat the whole grain, and hence you get all of the nutrients that the grain has to offer. Again, we would tell you that you need to cook it for at least 3 hours so that you break down the phytic acid load within the grain. However, there are benefits, the B vitamins and protein and so forth to gain from eating these grains. You'd always hear about wheat germ associated with B vitamins and good for the brain. But if you eat the whole rice in itself, you're getting that benefit. And when you do cook it within a rice cooker, it actually bursts open nicely. I remember the first time I cooked barley, and when it's cooked properly, that whole grain you see just bursts open and it's fluffy and nice. That barley had a sweet natural taste because the carbohydrate that was now broken down sort of had like sugars within it, and as you ate it, it was delicious. And that's the thing, as you start making the changes and getting these foods into your diet, it actually yields a taste that's different from what you may have not tasted before. And so one, your taste buds will be required to change, but also you would be enjoying the new taste because you know the food is healthy for you. It tastes different and you want to partake of it. And so the amaranth now, amaranth, quinoa, and buckwheat, they are of different categories, and so they do not require the long cooking. And so they are the Amaraceae family. You have the amaranth, and there you see all the different categories. So here we have a picture of what it looks like. Just a couple of them. In some societies, you find that having access to like the millet and the quinoa, that it's imported, and so the price can be a little bit more that you would have to pay for it. But one of the great things with these foods, because they're eating them whole, is that it is quite filling. So especially the rice and the millet and the rye and spelt and so forth, they're quite filling. So you do not need to have a heaping mountain of rice on your plate as if you were eating the white rice. So you find individuals who eat the parboiled white rice that's stripped of the fiber and the bran. They would find themselves eating a whole lot for them to feel full. But with the brown rice, you do not need to have a whole lot on your plate in order to feel full because of the fiber in it, because you're getting so much more. And so in less portion size, you will feel full and feel full for longer because it takes a longer time to be digested. It's a complex carbohydrate that's now broken down, and that would sustain you. And that here is why when we have our diabetics eat a proper meal and they have the brown rice within their meal, they are able to sustain on 2 meals a day because of how the plate is combined. They will feel full. They will maintain that level of satiety for a longer period of time, and so they're able to do really well on the 2-meal plan. So in other societies in the world, you find that millet and quinoa, it's quite easy to get, and so it might be cheaper in those areas. But use what you have in your hand, what you have that's available to you, and make the best use of it and eat up heartily. So here we have molasses that comes from the sugar cane. So just to show you part of the Gramineaceae family. You have a picture of quinoa because some folks, well, don't recognize that. And then you have, we are going on to the botanical family of the legumes. So the legumes botanical family, we're going to move on to now. Okay, so let's see, I'm just getting some, all right. So the legumes, this botanical family, contains more than 13,000 species spread across the world. And only, so you see this is taken from Encyclopedia of Foods and Their Healing Power, Volume 1, page 90. So 13,000 species of Leguminaceae family across the world, and only 50 species of legumes are of dietary interest. Okay. And together with grains, they are the richest in nutrients of any that grow on the earth, and those that contribute the most to the proper nutrition of humanity. You would see that the Lord has blessed the earth with an abundance of food. And I wish that all the listeners could raise their hands and say, yes, I agree. Because what He has provided as food to mankind, He is not a boring God. He has created and provided variety. So when folks talk about rice and peas, I tell them, well, what do you want to have? Your chicken and your chicken and your chicken? But when you know, my thing is, when you have chicken, how many different ways could a chicken come but be chicken? You can cook it in different forms. So you may have the, you know, sweet and sour. You may have the sort of barbecue finish, taste one, you know, baked chicken or fried or whatever, boiled. But it's still plain chicken. And but when it comes to the beans, here you have about 50 species of legumes that you can eat. You know, that's not boring to me. And you know, there's so many varieties. So one day you can have pigeon peas, red beans, black beans, white beans, lima beans, pinto beans, soy, and soy has different kinds like azuki, edamame, tofu. You can have, you know, mung beans, a whole wide variety of them. And that's not boring, and you have different tastes when it comes to as you prepare them. And so to me, being a total vegetarian is very exciting. So that's in the Leguminaceae family, and that's the peas and beans that you have right there. So here we have the picture form. Okay, so you know, like snow peas rather, and then you have the pigeon peas that we would grow, and you can have this at different times, the season times of the year. So let's move on now to the fruit botanical family. And so you have different kinds of fruit and their botanical families, what they come from. And you know, these lists are not exhaustive. They're just part of the research that was done. And you could find additional fruit and vegetables to add within these categories as you spread across the world. And you would find that in different parts of the world, the same fruit might be called a different name, or you would see a fruit that is so unknown and unusual to you that, you know, it's great to taste and try the variety of them. But let's look, like kiwi, I found it to be the only one within the Actinidaceae family. And then you find, however, do you know what this name is? Grandaria. That is like mommy apple. So in some of our Caribbean countries, it's grown, like in Grenada, I know it's grown a lot. Mommy apple is in the same family as mango. And the cashew apple is in the same family too, the cashew. So then we have cherimoya, soursop, custard apple, sugar apple, pawpaw. And you can take some of these names here and just Google them to see a picture of what the fruits look like, and this, you know, to check whether it triggers off in your mind, or I know that fruit, so you may have a different name for it. Pineapple, you see pineapple is by itself, Bromeliaceae family. Then prickly pear, by itself, the elderberry. Pawpaw is another one category by itself. And then melon, you have a huge range of them. Look, Christophine is part of the melon family. And you could probably, just by looking at that, probably guess. Then persimmon and date plum, they are connected. So it's like in these botanical families, you have such fruit that falls under their category. And we go on here, mangosteen, avocado. No company here for avocado. Carob and cassia and tamarind, padu, they are all connected here. And they are what? Of the Leguminosae family. So you have in the Leguminosae family, you do have your peas and your beans, but you also have fruit kind. And look, they have the seed pod within them, just like in a bean in a pod, the carob and the tamarind. And so they're connected. Then acerola, that's the red West Indian cherries. They're by themselves. Okra or okra, that's another, the Malvaceae family. Breadfruit, jackfruit, those are all together. Banana, pumpkin, bergamot, finger rose, those are of the same family, the Musaceae family. Then wild guava, and you have rose apple, Java apple, all of those are the same family. Olives, it's by itself, and the list goes on. So peach, date, they're part of the palmy family. Passion fruit and a giant granada. Granada is the same, and it comes down here. Here we have apples. They're the same with strawberry, the Rosaceae family. Apples, pear, peach, quince, rose, hep, they're all of the same. And then we have the lemon, the Rutaceae here. This is the botanical name for what we would call citrus, the Rutaceae family. And so you have the orange, the tangerine, lime, grapefruit, and so forth. Ackee is part of the Sapindaceae family. So ackee, and then here lychee, and there's some other names, rutuban. So I'm not familiar with all of these different kinds of fruit. And so ackee has a seed on its inside. It is a fruit, and you can tell that by the look of it when it's hung on the tree. And the Solanaceae family is another one that we use quite regularly in our meals. And so the pepper, tomato, eggplant, potato, the red bell peppers or the different colors, cayenne peppers, sweet peppers, tobacco is also part of this Solanaceae family. And then we have grape, currant, and raisins, the Bataceae family. So all of these fruit kinds, seed structure on the inside, they're all in those categories. So here we have some pictures of what they look like. So if you can picture the food item and how in their combined form as to what families they fall under, then you would be able to quickly, in making your food selection, say, well, I'm having this group family of foods. So here you have the cucurbitaceae family for the melon, avocados by itself, the red cherries by itself, those are by themselves. Okay, bananas. Okay, and even with the palm and the dates, you have different kinds of dates, a huge variety. So dates, yeah, but then the different kinds of dates that are available. Pomegranate, this was by itself, and these are together. Okay, so here you see all these are together. So let's quickly look at the nuts, botanical family, and we have cashew, pistachio, and the nuts and the seeds, sunflower seeds, the squash seed goes along with the same family as the pumpkin, the squash, pumpkin, squash, eggplant, sorry, not the eggplant, pumpkin, squash, the cucumbers, the melon, and so forth, the cucurbitaceae family. So the pumpkin seeds will fall within there. And so you have the chia by themselves, lots of them by themselves in these categories for the nuts and seeds. However, as we have taught that the nuts and seeds can go together with your meals, so you don't really pull them out. And let's look at the vegetables. So we looked grains, fruits, nuts. Here we have the vegetables and the agar-agar, same with kelp and jute, carrageen, amaranth leaves. Goes on with the food amaranth, the green amaranth. So people actually eat the leaves of the amaranth. Taro, which is what we would call like the yam. Then you have the dasheen, taro is a different root crop. Arashi family, then you have borage, chard, red beet goes together, as well as spinach goes together. And then you have lettuce goes together, like sweet potato is just written here for you to see, root crop. Jamaica, all of these, chicory, so they're all part of the same. Then we have the cruciferous family, where you get the cabbage, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, broccoli, and the Chinese cabbage, and arugula, watercress, radish, kale is also part of this family, and cassava by itself, yam, sweet yam by itself. So that's just to give you an idea of when we talk about botanical families or kinds in foods, where we're coming from. And then it goes on here, Gramineaceae, again, with the lemongrass, citronella, sugarcane, bamboo shoots, it's just reiterated here. Saffron by itself, basil, sage, thyme, marjoram, oregano. So if you had these seasonings in your pot, it's all one and the same. And the whole concept about this is that the body would treat it, the stomach would treat it one and the same. Asparagus, beet, beer, garlic, arrowroot by itself, and so you come down the list. Purslane by itself, celery, carrots in the same family. And so if you're cooking a meal, you can have celery and carrots cut up together in your dish. It's one and the same. Parsnips as well. Lamb's lettuce by itself. Cardamom goes with ginger and turmeric. So just a couple pictures to show you the variety, cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, but they're of the same family. This is pak choy. So you have the sweet potato and the lettuce. Here you have carrots, and carrot would go with celery. Onion and garlic goes together, and you have the ginger, turmeric, and that goes together. And then what about nutritional yeast? It's part of the fungus group. So brewer's yeast, baker's yeast, nutritional yeast, they go together under the fungus botanical family. So instructions: eat breakfast like a king or queen, lunch like a prince or princess, and supper like a pauper. Your taste buds need to change. Just a forewarning that persons who have indulged their appetite to eat freely of meat, high seasoned gravies, and various kinds of rich cakes and preserves cannot immediately relish a plain, wholesome, nutritious diet. Their taste is so perverted, they have not appetite for a wholesome diet of fruits, plain bread, and vegetables. So, the statement is made here that folks may take a while to get, their taste buds changed. I will say, however, don't take it to say you have the liberty to continue where you're at without making that change. And you'd find that the sooner you have that intent and you're bent on making the changes, the sooner your taste buds is going to come around. I would therefore say that when your life is on the line, you do change. And there are folks who would make that change, and it's all there in your mind. If you want to do it, you will make it happen, and you will go use the vegetables without going back to the flesh foods. So what do we have on our plate for our breakfast and lunch? You have a wide variety of food to choose from. You're at a potluck in the church, or you're at a wedding ceremony and in the reception time. And what do you eat? Do you just go and put all of this food on your plate, or do you make selections as to what you will actually eat? And so the instruction is kiss it. Keep it simple. So do not have too great a variety at a meal. 3 or 4 dishes are a plenty. At the next meal, you can have a change. There should not be many kinds at one meal, but all meals should not be composed of same kinds of food without variation. Here we see the word kind showing up again. There should not be many kinds at one meal, so many botanical families at one meal, but all meals should be composed of some of the same kinds of food without too much of that variation. So another instruction: the habit of overeating or of eating too many kinds of food at one meal frequently causes dyspepsia. And recently I asked the class, what is dyspepsia? And we had all those suggestions coming in about it. Let me see if folks remember. Could you just type that in? What is dyspepsia? Okay. So do we have any suggestions? What is dyspepsia? Okay, so I'll start off. It's, when you have bad digestion, great. So we have the bad digestion, indigestion, it's manifested upset stomach, good. Gas, great. And you have the gas, the bloating, the acid reflux. Those are all, examples of what dyspepsia is about. Okay, let me minimize bloating. Good. Yeah. So we must care for the digestive organs and not force upon them a great variety of food. So one, we're told we don't want to overeat, and overeating in itself really taxes your digestive system, your stomach, it taxes your pancreas, your liver, your small intestines. Overeating, it's just longer for digestion, and it really overworks your digestive system. And we must care for the digestive organs, those organs that I just talked about, by not putting upon them a great variety of food. How do you take care of your pancreas? Don't overeat, and don't add too much of a variety of food on your plate. How do you take care of your liver? Don't overeat, and don't have all this mix-up kind of food on your plate. Keep it simple. And how do you take care of your stomach? These organs, they need not be overworked when we combine our foods well. He who gorges himself with simple kinds of food at a meal is doing himself injury. Taken from Mind, Character, and Personality, page 389. Okay, so we have here fruits and vegetables may be cookable or non-cookable. So some can be eaten raw, and some must be cooked. Some fruits and vegetables, just understand we can eat some raw, and some we saw that we need to cook, especially the coarse vegetables and the root items and so forth. You need to cook those. But the mangoes right here, you can have them raw. So these are examples of what can be eaten raw. And here you have examples of what we would need to steam and cook, and before you consume them. So here is what our plate and our meal can look like for breakfast and lunch. And understand it's for breakfast and lunch. Many times individuals have breakfast, but when you ask, what do you have for breakfast? Well, I have a cup of tea, and I have bread and peanut butter. That's it. That's not enough. And so let us make breakfast the heartiest meal of the day. Eat breakfast like a king or queen, lunch like a prince or princess, and supper like a pauper. So when it comes to breakfast and lunch, this is the outline. You may start with your fruit or vegetable. We'll break this down in a little bit. Start with raw, and here's the instruction. Always begin your meal with the live food item first. So you're beginning your meal, first up, live, your living food, your raw food, begin with your meal. Don't leave your fruit for dessert at the end. That's the wrong side way, and that's going to cause the indigestion because the fruit and your lettuce and so forth, they are easily digested. They're pre-digested already after you pick them. They contain enzymes in them to help with digestion of that particular food in itself. So the apple has its enzymes that would help to break down that apple when you eat it. The banana has its own enzymes that aid with the digestion of the banana, and so it goes forth. And they also provide enzymes for digestion that the body would be able to utilize in other ways. And in addition to the, after you chew your food, it gets to your stomach. The first part of digesting that meal, it has a lot to do with the enzymes that is gained by the food item itself. That's why you have the raw food. So the easiest and first part of digestion is the enzymes that's provided by the food. And if you were on supplements, you would have those enzymes to help you begin digestion. But the cooked food takes a little while yet, and we talk a great deal on this when we come to our topic on anatomy and physiology. And that's an exciting topic as we explain the whole physiology about digestion, so don't miss that one. But here you have the raw salad or your raw food first. Then you can go on to have some more raw, half your plate, or steamed fruits or veggies, half of your plate. Then the quarter of your plate will be carbohydrates. Another quarter of your plate will be protein and fats at the end of your meal. When we talk about steaming our vegetables, we want to steam them until tender. So our coarse vegetables, we steam them until they're tender. So when you're going to eat, you think, am I going to have a vegetable plate today, or am I going to have a fruit plate? Don't think that it is too daunting a task. As a matter of fact, it's a great thought to think about because it just simplifies your food. Because you know from the get-go, you know, what am I going to eat? Am I going to have a fruit plate? Am I going to have a vegetable plate? If I'm going to have a fruit plate, then immediately you start thinking about the fruit categories and your choices become clearer. So let's example of a fruit menu. Here we have mangoes, quarter of your plate in mangoes. So mango is in season and you're not going to eat one mango. We're asking that you have 3 to 5 servings and or more as you can handle of fruit and vegetables daily. So some of that will be raw, some will be steamed. But what is the serving? You use the palm of your hand to average a serving size. So these mangoes, the size look like, depending. For some folks, one might be 2 servings, or for some individuals, one might be 1 serving. So there's some individuals who would be able to handle easily 3 of those chewy mangoes. And I'm sure we can think, there are folks who may be looking on now and pretty excited to get some of these chewy mangoes for breakfast. But then we have a quarter of the plate for your carbohydrates. So carbohydrates will constitute your root items, your ground provision, or your rice, quinoa, buckwheat, amaranth, millet, corn, those would fall in this upper portion, your carbohydrates. So here we have like some edibles. And then the next quarter of the plate, you have beans. In this case, we have like string beans. And you can use this. So you have your raw fruit, your carbohydrates with your string beans, and you end your meal with nuts. You end your meal with a closed handful of nuts. So you choose your nuts. It may be straight out, as we have here, cashew nuts, or if you mix, say, cashew and almonds together, or you had walnuts, you had pecans, you choose which one you wanted, or it may be a handful of pumpkin seeds that you may have, but always end your meal with the fats that would be in the form of nuts and seeds. Then we have next fruit, another example of fruit menu. You may have half of your plate with watermelon. And when you do have watermelon with your food, because of the high water content, you give yourself a 15-minute break before you go on to eat the rest of your meal. Just because of the high water content, you want that to get on ahead with being digested, and it digests pretty quickly. And then you have you can have your rice again, but in this example, we do have like a gluten-free bread. And with hummus, hummus is chickpea or garbanzo beans that is blended and seasoned to give a nice paste. And if you're having hummus with your bread, don't paste it on thin, layer it on thick so that you really could enjoy the bean substance. And you want also think about nutrition for the body. So if you spread that on thin, you're not getting much beans for nutrition at your meal. So you need to paste it on thick, or just drop it in your bread thick. And then you end your meal with the handful of nuts. Another example we have here of a fruit menu is banana. And so you can have these bananas as your raw fruit at the beginning of your meal, followed by your steamed plantain. Banana and plantain is of the same family. Oh, sorry, let me just show you here the numbers. If we can actually count the number of variety of kinds of foods we have in here. We have mangoes, that's 1. Then we have the edibles, that's 2. And then the peas and beans, legume and nuts and seeds always go together, and we count that as 3. So one of the things too, when we have these botanical families, we would always look at our grains, the peas and beans, nuts and seeds as having seed-like structures. They are essentially one and the same. And then what happens is that when you eat it, the stomach treats it as one. And what you would now have is a simple kind of food that you're taking in. So when we have these botanical families, what we try to do is to have like one kind on our plate, or if you had a variety, say for example, if you had watermelon to start off as your raw, or cucumbers to start off as your raw food, and then you followed that with pumpkin or squash. Cucumbers, pumpkin, and squash is of the same botanical family. The stomach treats it as one in terms of providing the enzymes that's necessary for digesting it. And then your peas and your beans, nuts and seeds, along with your rice and your grains, stomach treats that as one. So in these examples here, you have watermelon, that's one kind. Now the grain, the bread actually comes, comes from a grain, so it may be gluten-free, and so it might be mainly, say, say sorghum flour. For example, you might cook this, prepare this bread, or some gluten-free flour that comes from a grain. Quinoa is also a nice, you can break quinoa down and have quinoa flour and make, make certain flat bakes with that. So if you have but whatever it might be, it comes from grain. And so grain, peas, the beans here from the chickpea, and the nuts, this is one and the same. So in this particular menu here, you have 2 kinds. And that's what we're looking for, not to have more than 3. So we are allowed to have 2 or 3 kinds, but not more than 3. Once you go into more than 3 kinds, you run into problems for digestion. So in this example with our banana and the plantain, it's one kind, and then the rice, the garbanzo beans here, and the cashew nuts, it's treated as one and the same. So in this particular menu, you have one, two kinds. The stomach recognizes as two kinds, and you have digestion that is simple. This is the key to breaking acid reflux, breaking indigestion. For individuals who have these situations, and if you were to listen to the previous lectures where instruction was given not to, when you eat, don't go lie down and sleep soon after. When you eat, don't go do vigorous exercise or great study or great talking. How to space out your meals. You don't eat and drink at the same time. Following those instructions and then having simple combinations in our plate breaks the acid reflux. It breaks the indigestion. It breaks the gas and the bloating and the farting or flatulence. And you feel more energetic and great for it. The mind is also clearer when you have good digestion. The body would be able to digest this meal in a shorter space of time, and the nutrients would get into your blood from a food in a healthy state, and you would have good blood to make good tissues to bring healing to your body. So another example, you have tomatoes. This is raw. Then you have your eggplant that's steamed, and even in the eggplant, if you were to cut up some tomatoes and put within there, it's the same. So you have some tomatoes cooked, some tomatoes raw. Here you have, this is soy curls, and if you were to put tomatoes in here again, it's okay. And then we have the green banana that's sliced up here, and the nuts and seeds. So right from, you see tomatoes and eggplant, one family, the green banana, another family, soy curls and almond nuts will be a third. So 1, 2, 3 kinds of food on this plate. Here's another example. Note that olives will go with either fruit or vegetables, and olives, they're neutral. So they can go with any of our meals and be quite successful in adding the olives. So we have potato and tomato here that goes together. Lentils, nuts, and corn is a grain here, and the almonds. So they are of the same grain, beans, nuts, and so they're all of one family. And olives, it's neutral, that it can go with anything. And you can have this for breakfast. Add a lot more beans here. So a potato can be pretty light if you're having this for breakfast. So you may need more potato or more corn in on this plate, or definitely some more beans in order to make it a more substantial, hearty meal so that you wouldn't feel hungry, because the potato in itself is a light item. When it comes to digestion, the carbohydrate in there breaks down pretty quickly as compared to if you had brown rice in this dish. So here's another fruit menu where you have tomatoes again. Tomatoes here mixed up with eggplant in the beans. So this is like a stew. And so eggplant and tomatoes, they are one family. Then the rice, the peas, and the pistachio nuts, they are of another. The stomach treats it as one. So though botanically they're different, but the stomach treats it as one. And so it breaks it down to having two kinds within this meal. Here you have another example of a fruit meal where you have cucumber. So cucumber dressing with cucumber. And then you have rice, tofu with a tomato sauce on it. and pumpkin seeds. So let's see how this works. So the cucumbers and cucumber dressing, that's 1. The rice and the tofu and the pumpkin seeds, that's 2. And the tomato sauce is another 1, so that's 3 kinds of foods within this plate. Then you have avocado. Remember, avocado was by itself in its botanical family. Okra was another one by itself in its botanical family, so that's 2. And then the rice, the beans, and the coconut, that would end your meal with fat. So the dry coconut ending your meal with fat will be 1 and the same. So in this mix, you have 3 kinds of food. Here you have another fruit menu. We're going to come to the vegetables shortly, but this is a fruit menu where you start off with your raw food citrus. So you're having, depending on the size of the oranges, you can easily have your 5 of the oranges, and enjoy it. Don't, limit yourself. There's some people who, without overeating, do have a large appetite. And because their body demands more, their stature, the work that they do demands more, so they can handle more. But if you have a sedentary lifestyle, or you work in an office, your demands are less, and so you may find that, and your metabolism, if it's good, your demand is less. So you may have 2 or 3 oranges, whereas somebody else may have 5. So oranges is what you can have here as your raw food. And then you have your eggplant. Eggplant and sweet potato is of potatoes, and this would be like the Irish potato, will have the same family. And then your peas and the nuts, or your pigeon peas and the nuts, they are of another family. Here we have the pecan nuts going along with the pigeon peas, for example, and so you have 3 kinds within there. Here you have a full plate menu, but let's look and see how they're connected. You have cucumbers that you can start off raw. Cucumbers and the pumpkin seeds, they are 1 and the same family. And then you have the eggplant and potato, they are 1 and the same family. And then you have your black beans, your rice, and your almond nuts. The stomach treats it as 1. So right within this nice full plate of food, you do have variety, and it looks like a lot of different things there. But if it is of the same botanical family, the stomach treats it as 1, and you will eat that comfortably without getting the gas, the bloating, the indigestion. That tells you too, how it was combined well. But if you were to have this and then you threw in spinach inside a hair, or you threw cauliflower or broccoli inside of this mix, your stomach will tell on you, because it will burn and the digestion is going to be delayed and it's not going to go well. So it's quite important when we talk about proper food combinations. What makes the food combination proper is when it's combined well and without having, stepping outside of the boundaries. So this is fruit kind, and yet you have variety. So I hope you were able to grasp that. Now we go on to looking at some vegetable menu options, and we do have like lettuce as the item that we can eat without lettuce that you can eat without having to cook the lettuce, because the leaves are thin, and you can chew that quite readily without having that cellulose fiber that's combating there to be broken down. The lettuce, however, the leafy ones will work really great for digestion. I have observed, like we have, say, the romaine lettuce, where you have that stalk down the middle. For some, it could be tender, and for some, you may purchase them, and that stalk down the middle is pretty firm. I would extend some caution in eating it because it could be so firm that you may want to just have the leafy part and not that stalk if it is an older bundle, and so it's more firm and it's not the tender leaves. And one time I had the experience of eating romaine lettuce and then afterward having gas and the bloating. And I was like, what, my meal was supposed to be fine. Why am I getting this, this effect? And I thought about it and I said, I wonder if it is that coarse part that's down the middle of the romaine lettuce. And so at the next opportunity to eat of the romaine lettuce again, I did break off, and it was from the same bag. So I did break off the leafy part and not eat that core bit down the middle, and digestion was perfect. So I recognize you're looking for lettuce to eat, but the leafy portions is what would do well for the digestion. So here in this vegetable meal, you have the leafy lettuce, the bread, and oats coming from the Graminaceae family, and but it's also the carbs that you're having here. But in this oat burger, it also is, it has some nuts within that particular recipe. Or you may have burgers that's made from a peas or bean or tofu or something. Recognize that you get protein from it, and then you end your meal with a close handful of the almond nuts. So in this particular picture, you do have lettuce, that's one. Then the bread, the oat burger, and the nuts will be treated as one and the same. So here you have two kinds of varieties on your plate, and it would work great for digestion. Here again, you have another example of a vegetable menu. You have lettuce that we would start off as raw. Remember, always begin your meal with the live food item. And try and make sure to have a live food item to start off your food with. So even if it's lunchtime, and back to the fruits, if it's lunchtime and you didn't have cucumbers or you didn't have tomatoes, you can eat apples and you can eat mango to go with your pumpkin maybe, or your food. But don't think that the sweet is only for sweet meals and the savory fruits only for savory. So for example, you can have granola for your breakfast, but to start off, your raw food might have been tomatoes, and nothing is wrong with that. So just think outside of the norm and the box a little bit and expand the mind and see you would come up with tremendous amounts of ideas. So in this particular veggie menu, you have lettuce, then you have cauliflower, kale, and some onions here. And then you have a corn pie. Then you have the peas and the sunflower seeds that goes there together. So the onions, and that will be in your meal that you will cook that. You steam this bit, all of these together. You steam them till tender. In here has the cauliflower and kale right in the bottom. Cauliflower and kale are of the same family. So next you have lettuce, then you have spinach, rice peas, and the pumpkin seeds. Some are treating it as one. Lettuce 2, spinach 3. Another example, lettuce 1, carrots. And then you have the rice, the beans, and the nuts treated as one. So in this particular picture, you have 3 kinds of food. Now, one of the things too that, especially when it comes to the vegetables, you may not have many that you can mix. Whereas, say in this example, we had the cauliflower and kale that you could combine and have, you know, a nice cook-up. You could have even added broccoli in here in this cauliflower, kale, and broccoli cooked. They are of the same botanical family. The enzymes are one and the same, and so the stomach is going to have an easy time for digesting those 3 items. But when it comes now with the carrots, celery and carrots would go together. So you can have celery cut up in this carrot. But carrots, you may have it by itself because we can't put carrots and broccoli together in a menu like this. It's going to add a 4th one. So, you know, you want to do carrots. And one of the things I recognize is when you have the meals like this, and if you were to say, I'm going to have carrot, you can steam, depending on the size, a whole carrot and eat that whole carrot. Or if it's a smaller size, you steam and you have 2 carrots and you can eat those 2 carrots. The thing is, when we just like 1 little spoon of carrot, 1 little spoon of cabbage, how much nutrients are you really getting at the end of that meal? How much beta-carotene are you getting, and how much, you know, calcium could you be getting from the cabbage if you just had a little spoon of it? So I really appreciate this concept about if I'm having carrots, let me eat some good carrots and get my vitamin A, you know, which is a lovely way of getting your nutrients other than supplementing with a vitamin E. So if you're low on vitamin E and you want to improve and have beautiful skin and so forth, use the carrot. Get your beta-carotene, your vitamin A. And so you may have 1 or 2, and literally you will be, you know, eating adequate amounts. Here again, you have all raw with lettuce. Then you have dasheen here, that's 2. And then your lentils and your sunflower seeds come together as 3 kinds in this meal. Here's another vegetable meal where you have lettuce. This is what black rice looks like when it is cooked. You have the garbanzo beans here when it's cooked. And then you have broccoli. So lettuce 1, black rice, beans and nuts 2, and broccoli 3. 3 kinds, and that's good. We don't want to go over to more. Desserts. So desserts are not for diabetics. We don't want them to be using, diabetics to be using the dried fruits or these sweet items. And here you can have some simple desserts for other folks to have. So our diabetics, work on getting your diabetes reversed first, and then you can come and enjoy the nice, healthy desserts. But you do have some brownies here, and these particular brownies, I think they look great. How do you think they look? And there's a nice secret recipe for making brownies, and this particular one doesn't have any whole wheat flour or anything. It doesn't have any coloring to make it brown. And so what made it brown is black beans. So it's a black bean brownie, and it tastes great. And so you might be kind of, you know, squinting your eyes, a black bean brownie. And that's the beauty of what you can do with food. That you can use, for example, when we talk about milks and we demonstrate that in our cooking classes, you can use any grain, nut, seed, and make milk. And, you know, but here you have your beans too that you can blend and mash, cook and mash down and break down, and you have a flour. So there's like pasta, black bean pasta, and that's a real item that's sold. So what's wrong with taking black beans and you cook it? You don't add any seasoning or so to it. You just cook it, and then you blend it down or you smash it down, and you have black bean flour. That if you were to pay for it, you'd pay tons of money, but the black bean itself that you'd purchase is pretty cheap. And then you break it down to flour, and you actually work it up, and you have your black bean brownie. And then you have some oat brownies here, and this one is carob with oats, and this is non-baked. And in this particular one, you have prunes with natural peanut butter in it. That's a quick dessert to make that you can enjoy. So what do we have for supper? Supper, when taken at an early hour, interferes with digestion of the previous meal. When taken later, it is not itself digested before bedtime. Thus, the stomach fails of securing proper rest. The sleep is disturbed. The brain and nerves are wearied. The appetite for breakfast is impaired. The whole system is unrefreshed and is unready for the day's duty. Counsels on Diets and Foods, page 176. So the stomach, if we do need to have proper rest, be mindful of that third meal in the evening. If you're having acid reflux situation, I would encourage you to eat 2 meals a day, not having supper, so that your stomach gets a break, and you will see it will make a night and day difference by skipping, by structuring your meals so that you have 2 meals rather than 3, eliminating the supper. Because lots of times, if supper is too early, it interferes with the lunch meal digestion, and then if it's too late, you're going to bed. The evening meal, eating a large evening meal or late at night. Avoid late night snacks. The stomach, when we lie down to rest, should have its work all done, that it may enjoy rest as well as other portions of the body. The work of digestion should not be carried on through any period of the sleeping hours. So when you're asleep, there's certain functions that the body needs to conduct during the sleeping time when you are asleep. And that would be hindered, it would be delayed, it would be, the body would be disturbed in carrying out its relevant functions. And in addition, your stomach is like working all day and all night. So when you are going to bed, going to sleep, you should not have any food on your stomach to be digested. And so what happens is that your body feels tired the next morning. This is one of the reasons why individuals do not relish breakfast, because they're having the late night snacks. They're having the late night meals. They're having suppers too late in the evening. And so the body now has this extra work on it. You're going to be fatigued and tired, and you wake up the next morning not having the energy. Your sleep is not refreshing you. You find that you have no desire for breakfast. But if you were to eliminate that evening meal, breakfast is coming, and you're sure going to be looking forward to it. Another thing is that it gives the body a time for fasting period of time. So, when you have your last meal being the second meal, and then not until the next morning, you do have those fasting hours that helps in cellular repair and other functions in the body to be enhanced, rather than adding all these sets of food. So there are great benefits even with the 2-meal plan. Supper, what is the best time to eat supper? Supper should be eaten at least 3 hours before bedtime. So between the hours of 6 and 6:30, not past 6:30. Remember when we talked about rest and the importance of rest. If you ate after 6:30 p.m., you stop the production of melatonin in the gut. That gives restful sleep. So we don't want to pass 6:30. In addition, it gives us ample time for digesting that third meal. If you were to have supper, ample time before you go to sleep. You want that third meal to be at least 3 hours before bedtime. So let the students have the third meal prepared without vegetables. So no vegetables for supper, but with simple wholesome foods such as fruit and bread. Counsels and Diets and Foods, page 178. So no vegetables for supper, no handful of nuts or pumpkin seeds or sunflower seeds or peanut butter, no fat for supper time. Those things take longer to be digested and you don't have the time for that. You're going to go to bed within 3 hours thereabout. So what to eat for supper? This should, however, if taken at all, be very light, and our food most easily digested: crackers, the English biscuit or zwieback, and fruit or cereal coffee are the foods best suited for the evening meal. So crackers, English biscuit, zwieback is bread baked twice, and so you can bake your bread, slice it up, put it back into the oven. The more dry the bread is, the easier it is to be digested. So it makes it a great item for the evening meal. Or you can make your own crackers. And cereal coffee here is toasted grains that has a coffee-like taste if you were to drink that. But then fruit is another great option for your evening meal. So evening meal, 6 o'clock, you can have oranges or tangerines. You can have watermelon. And if you keep it to one simple item, I mean, it's way so easy to be digested and you can be happier for it. So not too many combinations. You can have tomatoes. So you make like a tomato salad, sprinkle a little pink Himalayan sea salt on it, and you would enjoy that. You can do the same thing with your cucumbers for that supper meal. You can have some bananas, and there you would be okay. Then you can have some of that toasted bread with pumpkin. So we talk about fruit, those that you can have raw, which is easier to be digested, and then you do have fruit that you cook. So eggplant or pumpkin you can have to go along with the bread. If you coconut water is also another option that you can have for your supper time. You know, that's quite filling. Coconut water with, yeah. So if you feel that you must eat at night, take a drink of cold water, and in the morning you will feel much better for not having eaten. Counsels and Diets and Foods, page 177. So here's the only time that cold water is recommended, because ordinarily we would say drink your water at room temperature. But then cold water, no. However, if you were to feel sort of hungry in the evening and you're not having a third meal and you really intelligently decide, I'm not going to eat anything because I prefer to go sleep and I'm going to have my rest undisturbed, just drink some cold water. It would shut down digestion process. And you would see it works miraculously. You would not feel hungry anymore after you've drunk that cold water. So lemon water will also too arrest digestion, and you can use that so cold and add a little lemon to it. And that brings us to the end of our plate and what you have for your breakfast, your lunch, and your supper.